and the actual tests. Now, because I selected page objects, it actually built some default page objects for me. So it created a parent class called page, which opens the path to the particular page. And then we have the secure page. So if you have any secure information, you can define it here. Again, extends page. And then we have login page. So login page has 3 fields that we're going to get: username, password, and button type submit. So hashtag means that the ID is username, hashtag username password. This is a XPath lookup, so we're looking for button of type submit. So we have our selectors here. Again, these get loaded every time you load login page, so you have to be careful with this. Again, JavaScript not as heavy as Java, but still you need to be conscious of how many of these you load. Now, we have our login method. So we create an asynchronous login, pass in username and password, and it will try to log in to the site. So we do awaits, this, and button submit. Return super login, and we define our class. So now we come into our specs. So here is where we build our test case. So here's our test case. We register our 2 pages. So we have login page, secure page. Each of these goes to our specific page. Then we describe my login application. It should log in with valid credentials. We do an asynchronous call login page open, login page login, expect secure page. So after we log in, we should get a secure page. It should exist, and secure flush to have containing. You have logged into a secure area. All fairly readable and user-friendly. So when you run this, that is what we saw. Now, just some other quick examples. So if you do Appium or any mobile testing, you can download the Appium template, follow the same type of model. It's got some additional configurations for Appium. So you have different types. You want to include different paths. And you have some other pieces you configure here. Here's all the dependencies. So we need to include a bunch of different scripts and dev dependencies. So Appium, browser stack, local runner, Mocha, sauce service, Babel config. So here, because we're dealing with mobile, we need some helpers. So we have biometrics, some constants, some gestures, some utilities. So that's if you're doing mobile. Again, we have page objects. So here, again, keeping it simple, we can do get username, return username, get password, return password, very clean. Page. Now here's where things get a little tricky. If you are a Cucumber fan, you have to build your features. And this is where this gets a little ugly. So you can create your steps. So here's all your givens. Here's your thens, here's your whens, and then your features look something like this. Background, given, I open the site, scenarios, and so on. The problem I have with Cucumber is that, well, this is very user-friendly. When you get to the actual test components and do your steps, this is not always user-friendly, especially even with page objects. So buyer beware if you try to use Cucumber for testing, especially with JavaScript and Selenium. It works. It is functional. If you are a Cucumber whiz, by all means, use Cucumber. It's just not my cup of tea. I think there's just way too much complexity with setting things up. Jasmine, not so bad. So if you come in here, go into test, page objects. Again, you follow the standard page object models. very clean, very easy to read. And then your specs are, again, very easy. So here is our test step, or I'm sorry, here's our test case with 2 use cases inside of it. So auth form should deny access with wrong credentials and should allow access with correct credentials. So kind of an if-then. Dynamic, checkbox, and then WebDriver master. So we have TypeScript. We can do Mocha, test, sample test. Again, fairly easy to read. And TypeScript syntax, a little easier to read. A couple additional features there. Can include Docker. I thought this was cool. So here's our Docker test, but then here's all your Docker setup information. So if you do Docker, you could actually run this test. It will build a Docker, it includes the Docker file. It'll run the little nugget. It'll run the little Docker container for you, and then it'll run your tests inside of your Docker. So it's completely self-contained. So this was really cool. I like this option and idea. And it builds it for you out of the box. So you don't have to configure anything. So if you're not a Docker fan or you just are new to Docker, highly recommend this. Check this out. Again, Cucumber, if you like Cucumber. And I showed you Jasmine. So that's kind of WebDriver in a nutshell. Do we have any questions?
If anybody's asking questions, they are on mute. No, this is, it's just one of those, particularly as you go through some of these features, it's just amazing how much functionality and features are just, really quick to fire up as far as, related to testing and things like that. Particularly, and I'd run into a while back mocks and spies and things like that, where it is amazingly easy. It's surprising now that some people, that people don't, particularly in commercial or professional development, don't include test scripts and regression on a regular basis, because it's just the power of some of this stuff is just amazing. So great presentation.
Dave, any questions?
Yeah, can you build a full application using just the WebDriver IO?
Well, it's not so much an application. You're building the test application to test an application. So it's building your whole test suite for you, but then you have to go wire it up with the page objects and your actual test scripts.
Gotcha. So it does test everything, like the Appium and all the Accelerate and all those different applications.
Yes, it can integrate with any of these. You just have to do the setup. So you have all these different services here you can integrate with: Appium, Browser Stack, DevTools, Firefox, Sauce Labs, Visual Code, like I showed you, Chrome Driver. So you have access to all of these, which is really slick. And the reason they have access to all of this is because WebDriver IO essentially incorporates and uses that Node.js. If it didn't use Node.js, I don't think it would have the capabilities that it does.
Okay, gotcha. Cool, thanks.
Yeah, no problem. So if there are no more questions, just to quickly recap. So WebDriver IO is a very useful front-end test framework for Node.js. It is really useful for shops that are front-end development heavy, meaning that everyone does HTML, JavaScript, CSS, XML. Essentially, it's all front-end. There's no back-end heavy lifting either through C#, Java, anything of that nature. With that being said, though, WebDriver IO essentially is a JavaScript wrapper around the Selenium WebDriver. So if you are a more complex shop and you have a lot of back-end developers and a lot of back-end features using things like C# and Java, I would recommend not using WebDriver IO and go and just use the Selenium WebDriver classes and packages for your particular language. Reason is, typically when you have things like this that are wrappers around another technology, you never know when they're going to go away or not be supported, or the core feature that they're wrapped around changes something that breaks this integration piece. So it's just something to be careful of if you're looking to use this type of feature for your testing. So that's a wrap. I'd like to thank you all for your time. If you would love to discuss any of these topics or other topics, you can reach us at the following. We're at info@developerner.com. You can reach us on our developerner.com website on our Contact Us page. You can tweet us at developerner. You could also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/developerner. Our videos are available on Vimeo and YouTube. Just search for Developer Nerd. Our goal is making every developer better. Thank you and have a wonderful day.